looks like we've got a great afternoon for our flight. Just sit back and relax for a minute while I get us spooled up and ready to go. We're sitting here at Batumi International Airport down at the southern end of the DCS Caucasus map. Electrical power up. We've been granted permission to take off using runway 13, which is highly unusual. That direction is normally restricted for light aircraft. Spooling the left engine. But I'm not complaining. It'll give us a good view of the river and set us up nicely for our flight along the coast up toward Kabuli. Wish I could use it more often. Right engine start. The Black Sea is right over there, just off the end of the runway. The Lesser Caucasus Mountains are off to our left and behind us. And the Turkish border is right in front of us, about 10 kilometers away. I'll point it out once we're airborne. Well, now that both engines have started safely, let's make it a bit quieter in here. Canopy coming down. Okay, let's get the show on the road. Batumi International is one of 3 international airports operating in Georgia. 737 and a Yak 40. Alright. The other 2 international airports in Georgia are Tbilisi International, serving the Georgian capital, and David the Builder International outside of Kutaisi, which we'll be seeing soon from the air. And while we're taxiing, I'd like to take a moment to thank Mark Shepsky-Shepard and Steve Britt Radardu Tonklinson, who years and years ago came up with the original Caucasus tour for Lomac Flaming Cliffs 1. Whatever the version number was at the time. And most recently, I'd like to thank Cooper Sherp Supreme Jones for his efforts to catalog points of interest on DCS World's Caucasus map. In fact, it was his efforts that rekindled my interest in creating a tour of the southern part of the map as well as one for up north. This tour includes the results of their collective efforts, though I'm adding some points of my own. I wonder if somebody flew into work this morning. Georgian Air Force. Today we'll visit some of the points of interest down in this part of the world, leapfrog the Caucasus mountain range, and eventually end up at Sukhumi-Babushara, farther up the coast. Alright, right up here is where we curve on down to the runway. Slow down a bit. And we're going to hold short because that 737 should be ready for its takeoff roll. Hold here, and there he is, rolling. Oman Airlines. I didn't know they flew in here. I knew Bahrain did. I didn't realize Oman was down here too. Okay, everything is clear. Let's go ahead and take the runway. We'll head on down to the other end to 13. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead. You know, the more I think about it, I wonder if that Oman jet was actually a charter of some sort, because I really don't think they fly in here. We'll make the turnaround here. clear this way, and clear down that way. Okay, let's get ready here. This will be fun, and like I said, I don't normally get to take off down in this direction. Get lined up. Brakes on. Throttle up. Go to full military power, brakes off. And here we go. Rotate. Positive rate of climb, gear coming up, and that's where we were. Ooh, let's pause this. Notice our shadow. See how big we are? That's us in relationship to a Yak 40. And yeah, that's the way it is. We're actually a little over a half a meter longer than a Yak 40. This is one big aircraft. River. And let's turn now and reverse course, head out towards the coast. And the Turkish border is right down in that direction. The river, the airstrip with Batumi in the distance. The Turkish border comes in perpendicular to the coast, right there on the hill that's in the middle distance, centered in our view. Okay, let's head up the coast. There's a nice look at the Lesser Caucasus Mountain and the mouth of the Kora River. Everything down in this part of the world has multiple names depending on the cultural influence and who you're speaking to. There's Batumi International Airport in the sim, and here it is in the real world. Not bad. This shoreline has a lot of beaches, though they're not all that sandy. Small stones, really. Don't come down here on vacation thinking that you're going to wiggle your toes into a soft, warm sand. It's not going to happen. In the real world, this part of the map has some really interesting architecture, but not so much in the sim itself. Down on this end of the city is Miracles Park. Here it is in the sim, and here it is in real life. We'll just circle around here. There's the harbor. A look back down the coastline. There is Neri Lake. That building at its southern end, kind of in that far right corner, houses the Dolphinarium, a sort of mini SeaWorld for dolphins. Closer look at the seaport. It's also the home of one of Georgia's 2 Coast Guard stations. Rail yards. Now this hill coming up, actually in real life, has the top station for a tram that runs from the harbor up to here, with really great views of the city. It would be just about where that building is with the petroleum tanks. And this is the view from up here. The bottom station is down in the near corner of the harbor. And let's just keep circling around. Airport, river, and Turkish border off our left wing. Another look at Miracles Park. And the harbor area. The U.S. Coast Guard actually donated a couple of Coast Guard cutters a couple of years ago to the Georgian Coast Guard. And this building down here in this left corner of the lake is the Dolphinarium. Nice view of the harbor and rail yards. And another look at the beaches. Alright, let's head on north, up along the coast, on toward Kobuleti. The town of Kobuleti is just a short distance up the coast, so it won't take us very long to get there. This entire stretch of coastline is full of beaches and real-life resorts. Coming up on Kobuleti and Kobuleti Airfield with its crossed runways. This isn't an active field in the sim. I've found real-world references to what translates as a parachute school being located here. Some of the areas around the runway are referenced as landing zones. Not sure if it's military or simply refers to a civilian skydiving school, or maybe something else entirely. Let's swing out wide now and get closer to an area we know in the sim as Kobuleti Air Base. In the real world, it was a Soviet base named Ozergeti Air Base, home to the 841st Fighter Regiment, which used to fly, I think, MiG-23 floggers. Today, this base is no longer in operation and has been partly dismantled. But in DCS World, there's a lot more activity possible. In fact, there's someone taking off down there right now. This is as far north as the Lesser Caucasus Mountains come. Off our left wing is the Rioni River Basin. Beyond that, the Greater Caucasus Mountains begin. These two ranges, the Lesser and Greater Caucasus, run parallel to each other, roughly 100 kilometers apart. Sometimes a little closer, sometimes farther. But there is a small range that connects the two, the Leki, also known as Sukhumi Range. We'll be flying over it in just a bit, and it divides Georgia into its eastern and western halves. Sukhumi Pass is the low point in this range, and we'll be passing over both the range and the pass shortly. Ah, I recognize those bridges. This is what this area looks like in real life. As we cross this ridgeline, we're coming up on what used to be the Copa Neri airport in the real world. It closed for renovation in November of 2011 and reopened in September of 2012 as the modern David the Builder Kutaisi International Airport. The The real-world international terminal and tower are located up along that square at the top. There's what it actually looks like today. In the sim, we know this more simply as Kutaisi Air Base. Some activity down there. We should be out of the way up here, though. Closing in next on the city of Kutaisi itself, which has 2 airports on the Sim's map, but neither one is active. The first, Kutaisi West, is still a real-world airport. As near as I can tell, it's privately owned, and several tour companies fly their aircraft out of this location. The second airport is a bit more problematic. While I haven't been able to find any references to it, you can see what it looks like in low-resolution satellite imagery from the late 1990s, or at least I think that's a runway there. And here's the same area today in high-res imagery. Notice that there's no evidence of a runway. It sits alongside the location of the old Soviet-era Glory Memorial. The memorial isn't there anymore either because the Georgian government blew it up in 2009 when they were building their new parliament building on the fringe of that field. I guess they didn't want that reminder of the past in such prominent display from their new government digs. That's the green and white object in the recent imagery. And here's what their building actually looks like. Kind of interesting, though, that their parliament's in Kutaisi and the capital's actually in Tbilisi. So it looks like there may have been a runway there at one time, but it's definitely gone now. The old Kutaisi automobile factory is located near here as well, and I wonder if maybe it has something to do with that. I just don't know. Now we'll head on over to the Kabuli Reservoir. There's a bridge I'd like to sell you. The Rioni passing below us. Way down there in the distance is the confluence of the Karela River and the Rioni River. The Kabuli Reservoir coming up on our right. And almost directly ahead is the Jvari Pass. Although we can't see it from here, there's another reservoir just beyond it. And that small mountain framing the pass on the left, don't really know it by name, but if you're determined, you can get there using an old jeep track and a bit of bushwhacking for a tremendous view of the reservoir that's below us. Okay, let's swing down this end. There's the bridge I'd like to sell you. Looks pretty sturdy in the sim, and from a distance as well. But maybe not so sturdy after all. I certainly wouldn't want to drive anything heavy over it. Not too wide either. Now we'll swing down to Zestafoni on the banks of the Grigory River. We saw where that river flowed into the Rioni just a few minutes ago. Now we're just a bit further upstream. Zestafoni's claim to fame is its manganese processing plant. Founded back in 1993, it's grown to become Georgia's largest silico-manganese processing plant. The plant produces roughly 6% of the world's manganese alloys. For those who want to know, it's owned by Georgian American Alloys, based in Miami, Florida, of all places. And there's the Zestafoni rail station down there. Lesser Caucasus are to the right of our aircraft, and the Greater Caucasus are off to our left. And passing under us and roughly off to our left as well is the Lekhi or Samari Range. These low hills are the range that connects the Lesser and the Greater Caucasus Mountains. Our next waypoint is interesting, not so much for what's there as what's missing. It's up ahead here. As I researched this area, I kept finding references to a railway tunnel down here in the Lesser Caucasus near the Samara Pass, but I couldn't find the tunnel on the DCS map. However, looking around, I did find a location where the train tracks make a sudden turn, run straight for 4 kilometers or so, right through a cut in the mountain ridge. That's the Shkeramila River Valley over there. The rail line follows that valley and then turns sharply right at the cut. You'll see it in a second. There it is. The real-world coordinates for the missing tunnel match this place. Here we are on the sim, and here's what it looks like in real life. Given all the other tunnels we have in DCS World, I wonder why this one failed to make the cut. The river valley and the rail line. And on this side, there's the road leading up to the Samara Pass, which connects western and eastern Georgia on our left. In real life, there's a series of switchbacks down there at the pass. Now we're coming out over the Jvari River Valley, and these fields passing below are full of flowers in the spring and early summer. The Jvari River that you can see there just above the mirror has its source in northeastern Turkey, where it's referred to as the Kura. This river travels a total of 515 kilometers from start to finish. It flows through this part of Georgia before crossing the border into Azerbaijan and meandering its way to the Caspian Sea. We'll be seeing it again soon as it flows past Gori and through the Georgian capital of Tbilisi. Railroad, the Jvari River right below us. We're disappearing down the valley heading toward Tbilisi. And if this were the real world, about 15 clicks in that direction, you'd come to Bajormi, home of Bajormi mineral water, which is famous in this part of the world. And it's all the rage across the border in Russia, too. Some say that the main reason for the continuing conflict between Russia and Georgia is Russia's loss to easy access of the Bajormi water. At any rate, there's nothing there in the sim. In fact, there's little civilization on display in this part of the map, although there is a good deal here in the real world, including some abandoned Soviet-era military bases. You know, I enjoy flying in the Lesser Caucasus. It might not be as dramatic as the Greater Caucasus, but it's pretty and also interesting just the same. I find our next waypoint pretty interesting. If you're like me, as you fly over the landscape, you wonder about the topography you see passing beneath your wings. Fortunately, the MES resolution in DCS World is sufficient, for the most part, to tell the story. As you fly, you realize fairly quickly that there was probably a good deal of volcanic activity in this general area in the past. The evidence of it extends up here through Armenia and continues north up through the Greater Caucasus Range. There are even mud volcanoes and hot spots as far north as the Taman Peninsula on the Kerch Strait just across from Crimea. We'll visit one of those areas on the next tour. Right now we're coming up on the Abul-Samsari Range, where you'll see several aging cinder and lava cones. I'm going to stay fairly low to make it easier to see. It was actually a lot easier to tell with the pre-2.5 terrain coloration, even though the mesh is a bit better. And there's Tabakskuri Lake. That's Mount Tokfatili over there, in the sim and in real life. There's Mount Samsara directly ahead with its caldera. This is Mount Shavnabada, an extinct volcano, coming up on our left. And there's Samsara with its 3-kilometer wide caldera. Some lesser cones off to our left. Let's go ahead and fly down into the caldera. Here it is in the sim and in real life. And up and out the other side. That's Didi Abuli up ahead on the left. At 3,300 meters, it's one of the highest peaks in the Lesser Caucasus Mountains. About 35 kilometers in front of our nose is where the borders of Armenia, Turkey, and Georgia meet. Those two bodies of water just ahead are still in Georgia, but that body of water over there, Kozapini Lake, is half in Turkey and half in Georgia. We'll swing around this end and head north. And there's Didi Abuli off our left wing. Let's see if I can get you a better view of the cones. Didi Abuli. Samsara, there's a nice view of a series of lesser cones. And of course, Paravani Lake off to our right. Okay, next stop, Tbilisi. But before we head in that direction, I want to swing out closer to the Jvari River Valley over here. This is the Salka or Khmari Reservoir below us. Okay, this is close enough, I think. Let's angle down towards Tbilisi. Now, as you look out beyond the ridgeline into the valley, that city you can just barely see in the distance is Gori. Gori's claim to fame is that it's the birthplace of Joseph Stalin. If the name means nothing to you, you might want to Google it. The Stalin Museum is there, as also is an ancient castle as well. Neither of these, unfortunately, are depicted in DCS World. Okay, on to Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. There's the Jvari River angling in closer. And there's Tbilisi ahead of us. That water you see is the Tbilisi Reservoir, also known more grandly as the Tbilisi Sea. On this hill overlooking the stadium in the real world is a Zestafoni watchtower. This stadium is Mikhail Mestia Stadium, a multi-sport stadium named for the famous Georgian international football, soccer to those in the U.S., player. It's also sometimes referred to as Lokomotivi Stadium. This is the second largest stadium in the country. There's the Jvari River, and the next stadium. This is Dinamo Arena, also known as the Boris Pachadsky Stadium. This is actually the largest stadium in the country. It's home to both the national rugby and football teams. And here are some pics of the area. If we needed to refuel, there are 3 airfields directly ahead, including Tbilisi International Airport. Here's the southern end of the Tbilisi Sea. The Jvari above its northern end. As we leave Tbilisi, here are a few more images to give you the flavor of the city. Here's the Jvari again on our right. And ahead is the confluence of the Jvari and Aragvi rivers with the ancient city of Mestia, where they meet. From the 3rd century BC to the 5th century AD, Mestia was the ancient capital of the East Georgian kingdom of Kartli. It's also where Christianity was proclaimed as the official religion of Georgia back in 337. Mestia is also a World Heritage City with several World Heritage landmarks dating from the 4th to the 18th centuries. The Holy Cross Monastery of Jvari is right across the Aragvi River there. That's the river coming in from the top. Svetsko Valley Cathedral and Semtavro Monastery. These are key monuments of medieval Georgia. Unfortunately, they're not included in the sim. Be kind of cool if they were, though. Right around in here in the real world is a small airfield, Nataktari. We'll follow the Aragvi River and the military highway up into the greater Caucasus Mountains. This road's been the traditional route of invaders and traders through the ages. To give you an idea of just how old it is, Pliny makes reference to it in his writings back in the 1st century AD. The road runs from Tbilisi up through the Jvari Pass, where we're headed now, past Mount Kazbek and the Grigory Trinity Church, through the Daryl Gorge to the Russian border, and then on down to Vladikavkaz in Russia. It's one of only 2 roads that actually cross the Greater Caucasus Mountains. There's no dam here in the sim, but in real life, the Zvinvali Dam blocks the flow of the Aragvi River, and the river backs up into the 2 valleys of the Aragvi and the Shavis-Aragvi rivers. The Shavis-Aragvi River is just off to this side. Now we just follow the Aragvi River and the military highway up into the Greater Caucasus Mountains. There's the military highway down there. Looks to be a lot of traffic along it today. As we fly further up this valley, the walls gradually get higher and steeper. Both the highway and the river down there. Climbing. And we'll angle up in this direction, I think, to keep following the highway and the river. Yep, there it is. Still climbing. Almost there. The Grigory ski resort and the Jvari Pass coming up. Military road off to our right there, switchbacking up to the top of the hill. Now, although it isn't depicted in the sim, just above these switchbacks is the Grigory ski area. You might remember back in March some news reports about a ski lift accident at a Georgian ski area. This was the place. Here's the Jabari Pass. At 2,379 meters, it's the highest point on the military road. And this right in through here is known as Avalanche Alley, for reasons that become very obvious in the winter. Believe it or not, even though it feels like we're still climbing, we're actually following this valley gently downhill. Just glance at the barometer from time to time and you'll see. Still slowly losing altitude. This waypoint coming up is the last town in Georgia along this route, Stepantsminda. Although it doesn't exist in the sim, there's a neat little church up on that knoll right there, the Grigory Trinity Church, with the impressive Mount Kazbek as a backdrop. the Daryl Gorge and the border with Russia. Now closed is just ahead. For now, let's stay on the Georgian side. Climbing up toward Mount Kazbek. I've got to admit, Kazbek is pretty impressive. A look back down into the valley we just flew through. At 5,050 meters, Mount Kazbek is the second highest volcano in the Caucasus after Mount Elbrus. That's right, volcano. Both of them are volcanic domes. But no worries. Kazbek's last eruption is thought to have been around 6,000 years ago. That's Russia over there, just beyond this ridge. Now we'll follow the Koch Range down toward the Roki Tunnel on the Transcam Road. The tunnel was completed back in 1984. It's one of the only two routes that actually cross these mountains. We just left one, the historic military road. This is the second and only other route, unless you want to do some extremely serious bushwhacking. This tunnel's been an important player in several recent conflicts in this area. Okay, almost there. I'm going to swing out a bit to make our pass a little bit easier. Let's cut to the far side of this peak. There's the tunnel entrance from this side. Georgia still claims it, but right now it's located in the Republic of South Ossetia. Okay, let's drop into the valley for a closer look. Coming around. There you go. And now we'll clear the Roki Pass itself. Here's the exit or entrance, if you wish, from the Russian North Ossetian side of the pass. And now we'll stay on the Russian side of the border for a bit and fly on down to Nalchik. Crossing over the summit of Mount Smia-Komkoch. That distinctive peak over there, I believe, is Mount Karakov. These mountains are certainly impressive, aren't they? You definitely wouldn't want to go down here. They'd be a long time finding you, and you'd have a really, really hard time walking out. This just ahead is the aptly named Rocky Ridge. It actually runs from out in the distance there all the way up to the Belaya River, a tributary of the Kuban. The Belaya flows past Maykop, if that helps you to place it at all. Now we're just going to drop down along the north ridge of the Greater Caucasus and head into Nalchik. Just as an aside, Nalchik means little horseshoe in the local dialect. It gets its name from the horseshoe-shaped ring of hills around it. Nalchik is one of this region's industrial centers, producing high-voltage electrical equipment, various types of machinery, and automation technology. And most importantly, the JSC Helvichny Zavod Czech Brewery is located here. I believe that they also unfortunately produce non-alcoholic beverages as well. In the real world, it's located along the Nalchik River right about there, just to this side of that upper bend. Coming up on the Nalchik International Airport, though we know it as Nalchik Air Base in the sim. And Nalchik's most notable feature in the sim, the racetrack down there. The racetrack again. This is actually a hippodrome. They race horses. And now we'll head back up into the middle Caucasus. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the prettiest approaches to the middle Greater Caucasus Mountains, up, for lack of a better name, the Bizango Valley. That's the valley stretching out ahead and uphill just to the right of our nose. Right under us now. I want to get just a bit further to the right of the valley. Along this approach, we'll have the first, second, third, and fourth highest peaks in the Greater Caucasus within view. Out there in the distance is Mount Elbrus. That's the highest peak in this mountain chain. We'll be arriving there shortly after a slight detour. Numbers 2, 3, and 4 are in a tight little group just off to our left. There's Diktau, the second highest peak. And to its left is Kashtantau, the fourth highest. And the third highest is just peeking up over the top of Diktau on the Russian-Georgian border. That's Shekhera. You'll get a much better view of it in a minute. I think this will do it. Now, let's cut back across. In the real world, the Ula Churan or Bizango Glacier is grinding its way down this valley, but you'll have to use your imagination in the sim. Diktau, just ahead. In the real world, this is also a glaciated valley. Elbrus again in the distance. Okay, I'm just going to angle up here between Diktau and Kashtantau. That'll set us up nicely for Shekhera. Kashtantau just off to our left mirror, and Bizango Valley behind us. Almost there. Shekhera just clearing our right mirror. There's a look into the glaciated valley between what's known as the Bizango Wall to the left and Diktau off our right wing. Shekhera is the third highest peak in the Caucasus, the highest peak in Georgia, and it's the southern anchor of the Bizango Wall, the 12-kilometer ridge that you see curving gently away from us. There's a really nice view at the line of peaks that form it. Traversing the wall is considered to be Europe's most demanding expedition. just beautiful. Shakera with Diktal behind it. We're just going to fly down the length of the wall. The wall forms the Georgian-Russian border along here. Okay, let's select our next waypoint, Mestia. Really pretty up here. There's a look over the wall and down the length of the Bizango Valley, with Nauchik in the distance. Okay, let's head on over toward Mount Elbrus. That's the Grigory River down there. We're going to pick that up in just a little while and follow it downstream. But first, we're going to overfly Mestia, the regional capital of Swaneti. It's also the main center for tourism in the region. It's small, only about 2,600 people. In the real world, there's a small airport here, but it's not represented in the sim. The Swaneti region itself is noted for some very distinctive architecture, which we'll be seeing a lot of in just a bit. This peak coming up is Mount Ushba. While it doesn't make the list of the 10 highest peaks in the Caucasus Mountains, it's often referred to as the Matterhorn of the Caucasus because of its very distinctive shape. Pretty neat. Okay, let's take another quick hop across the border into Russia and head directly to Mount Elbrus. Okay, now we're heading over to Mount Elbrus. It's the highest peak in the Caucasus Mountains and one of the 7 summits, the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. Because of this, it's a major climbing destination with 2 routes to the top, the northern, more pristine route, and the southern route, which is more accommodating with amenities like a cable car ski lift system that takes climbers to the 3,800 meter mark. And there are also huts and camps set up along the climbing route. Elbrus is an inactive stratovolcano with twin summits. The eastern summit has a well-preserved 245-meter wide snow-covered crater. A low saddle separates it from the higher western summit. We'll see that in a minute. There are fumaroles and hot springs on the mountain's southern flanks, which we won't see in a minute because they're not depicted in the sim. Elbrus is snow-covered year-round and has 22 glaciers that feed 3 rivers, the Baksan, Malka, and Kuban. You might be familiar with the Kuban. It flows past Krasnodar. The Baksan and Malka join the Terek, and the Terek is the river that flows past Mozdok. So these glaciers feed rivers that flow towards both ends of the DCS World map. You certainly get a great view from up here, don't you? All the way to the Black Sea over there and deep into Russia over there. Okay, let's just circle around the double summit. I mentioned that this was a mountaineering destination because it's one of the 7 summits challenge. Well, the southern route is on the far side of the mountain and starts in the valley you see way down there at its base. That's where the ski lift and cable car system starts. Also, there are huts to make the trek easier. Even so, roughly 15 to 30 climbers a year die in the attempt. The northern climbing route comes up this near side of the mountain. The lower summit to the left and the higher summit to the right, with the saddle in between. The view toward Anapa in the sim and from the summit. A nice view of the saddle between the two summits from ground level. The cable car ski lift system starts in the deep valley just off the mirror and drops you at some huts roughly where those trees are. Then you climb to either summit of your choice and traverse the saddle to the other. And that way you get to both. The view toward the Black Sea, sim and real life. Okay, let's head on back towards the border. Okay, Ushba is directly ahead again with Dolgozoron east and west to the right of the HUD frame. The border follows this ridgeline. Crossing the border now. Ushba with Mazor to the right. I'm going to just follow the Dolra River Valley down to the Anguri. This is the region where you're most likely to first notice the Svenati-style architecture. This is the only exception to DCS World's more or less generic structures, though they are both literally and liberally scattered around both the southern and northern parts of the map. You'll spot them as far north as Anapa. What am I blathering on about? Well, this is what they look like in the sim and in real life. The Svans, a subgroup of Georgians, were the traditional gatekeepers of the high passes around here. These folks were the archetypical highland warrior. The Anguri River. These were their tower homes, family living quarters, treasury, and fortification, all rolled up into one. Most of the towers date back to the 9th and 12th centuries. Here's another group. And another. Boy, that sun's bright. Not the best time of day to be flying this valley in this direction. As pretty as it may be. And yet another village. Nice steeply sided valley, isn't it? Hope I don't lose sight of the valley wall in the sun. Another set of villages up that valley. Couple of fortified watchtowers. This is brutal with the sun right in our faces. A couple more. In 1.5 they used to appear singly, either one style or the other. In 2.5 it seems they get combined into a single entity, where you see one style, the other style is right next to it. Finally, some relief from the sun. Just ahead is the Anguri Reservoir. The Anguri hydroelectric dam further downstream backs the river up through this valley all the way to here. That's because the Anguri Dam itself is extraordinarily tall. With a height of 271.5 meters, it's the fourth highest dam in the world. By comparison, you Americans have the Hoover Dam, a very impressive dam, which is only 221.3 meters high. We still haven't arrived at the dam. Okay, finally, there it is ahead. And now, on our right, the Grigory River Dam, fourth highest in the world and the second highest concrete arch dam in the world. Another quick look at it. Quite a substantial dam. The Grigory River continuing on to the Black Sea north of Poti. Now we'll just hop over this set of ridges to Kvarcheli. That little notch you see directly ahead is where we're heading. We certainly had great weather for this flight, and I do hope you're enjoying it. Up next is the town of Kvarcheli. In the sim, it's notable only for its mountaintop transmission tower. In real life, Kvarcheli has been an important coal mining center, though the breakup of the Soviet Union and the Caucasus War in 92 and 93 left it devastated. The mining industry has not recovered, nor has the city. From a high of almost 40,000 inhabitants, mostly miners and their families, there are now fewer than 5,000 people living here today, and little mining remains. This tower, and for that matter this mountaintop it sits on, are no longer here in real life. Much of the mountain's been leveled, and most of Kvarcheli is being reclaimed by nature. Mostly it's becoming a ghost town. Well, that pretty much does it. Just have to put you back on the ground at Sukhumi-Babushara. By the way, where are you staying tonight? You have someone to meet you? Because the town itself is about 20-25 kilometers up the road. The airstrip's actually in Babushara. Oh, so you do have someone meeting you. Okay. Well, after flying in the mountains, this is certainly a lot flatter down here by the coast, isn't it? Just wish the sun was either higher in the sky or had already set, because this is still kind of tough, flying directly into it. Yeah, you can still see some snow-capped peaks back there. Okay, closing in on Sukhumi-Babushara. There it is. Looks pretty quiet down there, doesn't it? Not much different from the real world, actually. Looks like a freight train back there. Okay, let's turn onto our crosswind leg. And now our downwind leg. There's the rail bridge over the Grigory River, and in the real world. Gear coming down. And flaps. I think that's Mount Elbrus out there. The angle's about right anyway. Base leg. And turning final. Now I just have to put us safely down. Bit of a crosswind. Outer marker. Almost there. Grigory River in that direction, and the rail bridge over the Grigory in this direction. Unfortunately, we can't look down into the smokestacks from this angle. Inner marker. That crosswind is kicking up. Let's make some final adjustments here. And safely down. And aero brake. And aero braking for as long as possible. Nose wheel down. Wheel brakes to slow down. I do like this taxiway. It's a lot like an off-ramp on a highway. Okay, let's get you over to the terminal. Canopy coming up. Yep, really quiet around here. Let's hope your ride's waiting. Worst comes to worst, we'll get you up to Sukhumi somehow. Ah, there's somebody coming now. That must be him. Oh, her? Haha, you lucky dog. Yeah, that must be your ride. No other reason for them to be out here. Okay, just let me get this bird shut down and you'll be on your way. Lights off. Power off. Okay, you're free to catch your ride. Enjoy your evening.